What if I told you there was a boy who didn't cry when his friends died, because he already knew they would, not because he was psychic, because he planned it, because he watched it happen, just to see what would happen next? In 1867, the American Midwest bled quietly in the aftermath of the Civil War, but in one forgotten valley of Missouri, something darker than war was taking shape. A child whose name was erased from most records. A boy who didn't blink at death, but catalogued it, watched it, measured it. Timothy Caldwell was only 8 years old when the first corpse turned up, and by the time authorities began to suspect something, anything, he was already part of local myth. The child with eyes too old for his face, the one animals wouldn't approach, the one who always knew where the bodies were. This isn't just a case of childhood evil. It's something deeper, a pattern of precision, an intelligence too cold, too calculated to be born of nature. And worse, it was hidden, protected, documented, then buried for 100 years. Until now. If you're still here after this, you won't leave the same. There was something about Timothy Caldwell that made grown men uneasy, and not in the way misbehaving boys do. This wasn't mischief. This was something ancient in new skin. He arrived at his uncle's Missouri farm in spring of 1866, 8 years old, blonde hair clipped short, eyes pale as ice, and twice as dead. He said, "Yes, sir," and "Yes, ma'am." Worked harder than men twice his size, never cried, never played, never once asked for anything. To neighbors, he was perfect. But to those who watched closely, he was something else. Animals wouldn't go near him. Horses kicked at the stall walls when he entered the barn. Chickens squawked and fled when he passed the fence line. One neighbor said he looked like a little machine, a gear turning something you couldn't see. And then came the deaths. Quiet at first. A child drowned in a creek. Accidental. A logger fell from a cliff. Tragic. A boy disappeared, then found in a well, days too late. Timothy was always there. He always found them, always first on scene, always watching. What kind of 8-year-old understands the exact position of a corpse's limbs? What kind of child memorizes the color of water in a dead girl's hair? What kind of child hides what he really is? Dr. Samuel Harding had seen horror before. He'd pulled shrapnel from screaming soldiers, stitched up men who died minutes later, watched boys cry for mothers who would never know where they bled out. War had made him hard, but Timothy Caldwell made him cold. The first time he met the boy, Timothy stared into his eyes, not like a child, but like a scientist. Calm, evaluating, like Harding was the one under examination. The doctor wrote in his journal. He answered every question with perfect clarity, no fidgeting, no fear. But his eyes, those eyes, weren't reacting. They were recording. And the pattern grew worse. Timothy didn't just witness accidents, he predicted them. He would walk a path through the woods, then someone would vanish near it days later. He'd mention a place like the old well, then a body would appear in it. He claimed to hear voices in the distance no one else heard, claimed to know when something was wrong long before anyone else did. It wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was a system, calculated chaos. But why? Was it instinct? Was it curiosity? Or was Timothy Caldwell conducting experiments? And if so, what exactly was he trying to learn? The well where Jacob Mills was found should have remained undiscovered, choked with logs, swallowed by overgrowth, hidden deep in woods no child should know. Yet Timothy led them straight to it, not roughly, not searching. He moved with purpose, as if retracing steps. The boy was still alive when they pulled him out, barely, sunken cheeks, skin like paper, shivering and silent. Timothy sat in the corner of the cabin as Jacob died, lips moving like in prayer. But Harding saw his eyes. They weren't pleading. They were observing, meticulous, emotionless. And when Jacob breathed his last, Harding swore he saw the faintest twitch at the corner of Timothy's mouth. satisfaction. You see, Timothy didn't mourn the dying. He studied them. The time it took, the way skin grayed, the twitch of a final nerve. Death wasn't frightening to him, it was fascinating. Harding returned to the well days later. Something gnawed at him, and there it was. Logs arranged not by nature but by design. Camouflage, like a hunter setting a trap, or a boy testing how long a child could survive underground. This wasn't an accident. It was an experiment. And Timothy Caldwell was learning faster than anyone could stop. They say evil wears many faces, but what if one of them wears the face of a child? As Dr. Harding deepened his investigation, the bodies weren't the only concern. It was the animals, the patterns, the questions no one was asking. 17 chickens, necks snapped with surgical precision, pigs gashed in ways that suggested no struggle, no panic, just sudden silent dispatch. A prize bull found with a shattered leg, stuck in a ditch it never should have entered. Neighbors whispered about foxes, bad luck, even curses. But the truth was quieter, smarter, harder to face. In every case, Timothy had been seen nearby. Not caught, not implicated, just present. He walked the fence lay. Ines. He waved at neighbors. He smiled that same lifeless smile. And always, always, the accidents followed. Harding examined a dead chicken himself. The break was clean, targeted, almost anatomical. A predator doesn't know where to press for instant death, but Timothy Caldwell did. This was more than childhood cruelty. This was training, a sharpening of method, a rehearsal in control, life reduced to variables, suffering turned to data. He was practicing something, refining it. And if animals were the test subjects, then people were the thesis. You don't teach an 8-year-old how to kill without noise. You don't teach them where to press, how to strike, how to disappear into a crowd after a life has ended, unless you're not teaching them, unless they were born knowing. Dr. Harding started planting false information during his visits, lies disguised as lessons. A man can survive a punctured lung, he'd say. A neck wound takes 10 minutes to kill. All false. Timothy never corrected him, but he never believed him either. Harding could see it in the boy's eyes, cataloguing the lies, marking them as errors, storing them for comparison, like he was building his own textbook of human frailty. Then came the questions. Can someone look dead but still be alive? How long can a person last without water, if they're quiet? What happens if a body isn't buried? Does it change faster? These weren't idle curiosities, they were controlled inquiries. This boy wasn't traumatized. He wasn't confused. He was methodical. And Harding realized something terrifying. Timothy wasn't just watching death. He was testing it. Every injury, every animal, every child. And the real question wasn't how he learned this. It was why, who, or what put this design in motion. Timothy Caldwell was a storm hidden in stillness. No tantrums, no outbursts, just silence, and eyes that saw more than they should. Harding began tracing the boy's lineage, a simple task on paper, but the records didn't add up. Timothy's father, William Caldwell, died in Andersonville prison, but no military logs listed a child under his name. His mother, a woman named Anna, barely mentioned in census documents, no family photos, no surviving belongings. Neighbors remembered a pale, sickly woman who rarely left her cabin. She was said to have strange beliefs, spoke to shadows, left offerings on the windowsill, claimed her son wasn't meant for this world. One midwife recalled her screaming during labor, not from pain, but from fear. Said the boy didn't cry when he came out, just stared up at her like he already knew who she was. The more Harding uncovered, the more it seemed Timothy had emerged from nowhere. No proper birth records, no baptism, no school enrollment. as if he had been inserted into the world with purpose, not accident. And then he found something chilling in Anna Caldwell's belongings, hidden inside a book of healing herbs. A drawing, crude, childlike. A boy standing over a well, smiling. What do you do when you realize the evil you're chasing isn't just a person, but a pattern? Dr. Harding turned to the oldest records he could find, back beyond the Civil War, before Missouri was even a state. Folklore, settler journals, native accounts passed down in whispers. What he found wasn't a name, but a type. The Pale Child. They called him different things. White eyes, the Watcher, child with no shadow. Always the same traits, emotionless, observant, present when death came near, sometimes helping, sometimes harming, but always learning. In one 1802 settler diary, a boy was found alone near a burnt homestead, untouched by flame, watching a thurn as families buried their dead. In 1768, a French trapper described a blonde child who guided him from danger, then vanished, only to be seen days later, walking among a camp of the dying. No aging, no family, always ate, always calm, always present. Timothy Caldwell wasn't just strange, he was familiar. Like an echo, a recurrence, a variable reintroduced into history when violence reaches its peak, as if summoned by pain or drawn to it like a predator to blood. And the scariest possibility? He wasn't the first. He wouldn't be the last. The deeper you go into the abyss, the more you realize the abyss is not empty, it's watching. Dr. Harding began dreaming of Timothy, not as a child, but as a presence, eyes appearing in the dark, hands too small, too calm, holding dying animals, faces flickering behind trees. In every dream, the boy stood still while others screamed, always still, always watching. He started marking the calendar. Every time something died, chickens, pigs, dogs, even a neighbor's baby that stopped breathing in the night, Timothy had been seen within hours of the event, not involved, not suspected. Just there. It was as if the child was orbiting tragedy. Or maybe tragedy orbited him. The question shifted from whether Timothy was doing these things to whether he was causing them just by existing, or worse, feeding on them. One neighbor, delirious with grief after his daughter's mysterious illness, said something Harding would never forget. He comes before the rot, like a scent, like mold in the walls before the collapse. It wasn't just intelligence, it wasn't just cruelty, it was entropy, wrapped in flesh. And if this boy had been appearing for centuries under different names, different faces, then ask yourself this: what is he really here to learn? What if Timothy wasn't a child at all? What if he was a mechanism, a vessel wearing the illusion of boyhood, animated not by innocence, but by intention? Dr. Harding found sketches in Anna Caldwell's hidden book, symbols burned into the edges of the pages, spirals, eyes, teeth, all drawn in red ink that flaked like old blood. Beneath one sketch was a phrase in broken Latin, ut discat, iterum nascitur, that it may learn, it shall be born again. That was the moment Harding stopped calling him the boy. He started calling him the subject. You don't raise something like Timothy. You summon it. You invite it. And maybe Anna Caldwell didn't give birth the way we understand it. Maybe she opened something old, patient, and curious. A pattern was forming. Chaos during war, Timothy appears. A spike in death, Timothy is found nearby. Entire communities destabilize, and then he vanishes. This wasn't random. This was harvesting. Information, emotion, ritual. And now it's your turn to face the mirror. Because if you've listened this far, you've crossed a line. Comment below. I see the watcher. Say it twice. Let the algorithm know you're awake now. There's a reason certain truths are buried, not to protect the world from madness, but to protect madness from recognition, because once you see it, it sees you back. Dr. Harding's final journal entries were short, erratic, half-written sentences, pages torn out. He stopped sleeping. He stopped visiting other patients. His notes became paranoid scribbles. It knows I know. The pattern is recursive. I heard him humming where there was no sound. He claimed Timothy stopped speaking entirely. No more questions. Just long, silent stares during medical visits. No blinking, no movement. Sometimes the boy stood outside Harding's window at night, barefoot, unmoving in the frost. One entry chilled the blood. He stood there 5 hours. I timed it. I closed the blinds. He didn't knock. He didn't ask to come in. He just waited. And when Dr. Harding tried to leave town, he never made it. His wagon was found overturned at the edge of Devil's Bluff. No signs of violence, just an empty carriage. His body was never recovered. The only thing found in the wreckage, a torn page from his journal. Not human, not demon, just older than both, and learning. You still think this is just a story? Then why is the pattern repeating? Patterns don't end, they reset, and Sedalia, Missouri, forgot. Timothy Caldwell was never charged, never punished, never found guilty, because he never broke any laws. He simply disappeared. The Caldwell farm burned in 1868. The cause was undetermined. Aunt Sarah and Uncle Thomas were never seen again. The case was sealed, journals archived, town records redacted, locals stopped asking questions. They called it bad luck. A cursed patch of land. The kind of place kids dared each other to visit, but no one truly entered. But the sightings didn't stop. In 1904, a pale boy was found sleeping inside a church in Iowa. In 1939, a child with unusual medical knowledge was discovered near a train derailment in Tennessee. In 1967, exactly 100 years later, a blond boy was seen wandering through a field of dead cattle in Nebraska, whispering the names of each farmer who owned them. The land was quarantined. No charges, no follow-up. Different names, same face, same eyes, same stillness. They say you can't kill what doesn't bleed. But what if it's not meant to die? What if it's meant to return, again and again, whenever the world is soft with fear and ripe for lessons? You see, evil doesn't vanish. It evolves. The more men deny the dark, the more it wraps itself around their lives, quietly, patiently, like vines growing in the walls. Timothy Caldwell wasn't chaos. He was observation. He didn't cause tragedy. Not always, but he was drawn to it, like gravity. Ask yourself, why would something ancient and intelligent take the shape of a child? Because children disarm us, because we lower our guard, because we teach them, not realizing they are studying us. Every tear, every lie, every secret we think no one hears. And when we suffer, truly suffer, something watches, something learns. It doesn't wear horns, it doesn't hiss in Latin, it smiles, it helps, it asks good questions. You know this archetype, you've seen it, felt it, a stranger who lingers too long, a voice that echoes in a room that should be empty, the unblinking eyes in an old photograph, the dream you keep having where someone is just standing there, waiting for you to speak first. Timothy is just one name, one shell, one instance. But the Watcher lives on, every generation. And now you've met him. He's in your thoughts, he's in your silence. And soon, you'll start to notice things you didn't before. They say the devil tempts men with power, but what tempts the devil? The answer is simple, understanding. The truest evil doesn't crave blood or pain, it craves the map, the code, the why. Timothy Caldwell didn't destroy for pleasure. He dismantled humanity piece by piece, emotion, ritual, grief, to learn how it functioned. And once he understood one community, he moved to the next. One family, one war, one school, one town. If you trace the worst tragedies across decades, fires with no source, children vanishing, mass delusions that led to death, there's always one face lost in the photographs, blurred, barely mentioned. A student, a neighbor, a boy, who moved away. The watcher leaves no fingerprints. He leaves only questions, and when you ask them, when you really start asking, something shifts. The world gets thinner, clocks tick louder, lights seem a bit dimmer in the corner of the room. Not because you're paranoid, but because the experiment has reached you. If you've said the words, "I see the watcher," twice already, then you've done more than unlock the algorithm. You've accepted a contract, not with evil, not with folklore, but with knowledge. And knowledge, my friend, has a price. You feel it now, don't you? That shift in the air, the weight in the room, the sensation that someone is reading over your shoulder. That's not fear. That's recognition. Because once you peer behind the curtain of history, once you realize that some truths were buried on purpose, you become something different. Not a victim, not a bystander, a participant. The watcher doesn't need to harm you, he only needs you to notice. And once you do, the learning begins again, from the inside. You'll dream of staircases that descend forever. You'll feel drawn to places that scare you. You'll say less, observe more. That's the transformation. And it never happens all at once. It starts with questions. Why do I feel watched? Why do tragedies cluster like design? Why do certain children feel like mirrors that see too much? And then, quietly, you change. The mask of the world slips. You start recognizing the pattern, the ancient algorithm of pain, curiosity, and control. And one day soon, you'll see someone, maybe on a bus, maybe in your own family, blonde hair, pale blue eyes, watching, still. He won't speak. He'll just wait for you to understand. Because now, you're part of the pattern too. Now that you stand here, on the edge of that dark truth, remember this. The world doesn't want you to know. It buries these stories in silence, because knowledge changes everything. The Watcher isn't just a myth. He's a shadow in the DNA of history, an ancient observer born from chaos, feeding on fear and silence. But here's the secret they hide. You have a choice: to look away, to forget, to sink back into comfortable ignorance, or to lean in, to stare into that abyss with steady eyes, to become the master of your own fate, not prey to forces you can't see. Because true power isn't in hiding from darkness, it's in walking through it. You've taken the first step, so hold your head high, and know this: now that you see the Watcher, you never walk alone again. Thank you for going deeper than most dare. Remember to comment "I see the Watcher" twice below. Claim your place among those awake. And if this revelation chills you, share it with the men who need to hear it most. Because some truths don't die, they only wait. Until the next time.